So I've been sitting in the car for 2 hours from Dublin. I'm a bit cold and a bit stiff, so can I ask everyone to stand up and help me warm up and loosen up together? I know you're tired. I'm the last speaker of the day, so let's just shake our hands and our wrists up here, and then our elbows, and then our knees, and then just like make yourself feel really self-conscious and stupid. Woo! Okay, all the nervousness is gone. Okay, you can sit back down now. No more pain. So, happy International Day of the Girl. I think I'm the last person you have today, so if you can just bear with me for the next 20 or 30 minutes or so, then you'll get to go and be free. For starters, I want to say a massive thank you to Tammy from the Shona Project and the Waterford Libraries for inviting me here today to talk with you guys at Rise. It's such an amazing event. I know you've had some really inspiring speakers so far today, and I'm so thrilled to have been invited among them. I'm honestly kind of jealous that you guys are all in transition year. It's such an exciting time where you're thinking about what you like, what you don't like, getting to try new things, and, figuring out what you want to do, and maybe thinking about what life will look like when you leave school. So transition year was definitely a highlight for me, but it wasn't always plain sailing. This was around the time in my life that I started to experience a little bit of anxiety. And back when I was in transition year, which was 2004, because I'm a dinosaur, there was very little said about anxiety and very little awareness about how normal it is to feel this way, which just made it feel a whole lot worse and not very normal at all. So even as recently as 2014, when anxiety really got the better of me for about a year, I didn't understand what I was feeling or why I was feeling it. I felt like it was something I couldn't talk about with my friends in case they thought that I was mad or weird. I felt like it made me seem weak, and I certainly had no clue about how to manage it so that it didn't get the better of me. So if you felt anxiety like I have, you'll know it's just the worst, and it can really affect your confidence, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to share some of my learnings around anxiety and confidence. The question that I get asked most is probably, what's the one secret to managing your anxiety or finding a way of feeling confident in spite of feeling your anxiety? And the answer is very simple, and it's often what people don't want to hear, but it's the truth. It's about owning it. Saying, yep, anxiety is sometimes something I feel sometimes, and that's okay. And this was the title of my first book, Owning It, Your Bullshit-Free Guide to Living with Anxiety. You're allowed to curse when it's in a title, so that's okay. Which led nicely to my second book, which is A Confidence Kit, Your Bullshit-Free Guide to Owning Your Fear. As you can see, I have a fondness for the word bullshit. Now, before you can recognise and manage anxiety, you need to know what it is and how it happens. In my experience, there are two kinds of anxiety. First, there's a kind of anxiety you feel ahead of doing something that scares you, like getting up here today for me. I would always feel a bit wobbly before something like this, and that's okay. This kind of anxiety is easy enough to understand, and it almost always passes with the event. You produce a surge of adrenaline to get you through whatever it is you're doing. Your heart starts to race, you might feel a little bit sick. I kind of get a funny feeling in the palms of my hands for some reason. And this kind of anxiety is linked to something tangible, such as your exams, or maybe going on a date with someone that you've liked for ages and you're hoping it works out okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think this is the kind of anxiety we need to be trying to get rid of. It helps you prepare, and it shows that you care, and it's usually very short term. And I wouldn't be too worried about trying to not feel this anymore, and I wouldn't try to avoid it. So the anxiety that's a little bit harder to wrap your head around, however, is the kind that's just always there, simmering below the surface, making you feel uneasy for no obvious reason. And this type of anxiety is what I really began to struggle with, and it's what my first book is based on. It really actually just crept up on me out of, it felt like nowhere. It was about less about a specific event and more a period of time where I felt intensely uneasy, a near constant sense of dread, yet there was nothing sinister waiting for me, no test, no guide date, no important big scary event. And the fact that I was feeling anxious and not knowing why just made me feel more scared. So I wound up in this cycle of anxiety creating more anxiety, and it wasn't fun. Looking back, really what I was dealing with was the fear of the fear. I was terrified that I was feeling this way, so terrified, and it only made things worse. And to be honest, had I known then what I know now, and had I been having the kind of conversations that we're having today, where we can normalise something that is so commonly experienced, I don't think I'd ever have felt as bad as I did. To make a really long story short and to give you a bit of background on how I got so anxious, I was 24 going on 25 when the shit really hit the fan for me, and nothing that bad really happened. I had quit my job and started a new one and instantly regretted it. I loved the old job, I hated the new one. I hated it so much that I woke up in the middle of the night with this overwhelming sense of dread. Within about 2 days, my tummy started to really act up in the same way it had done when I was back in transition year if I felt ever uneasy. Then at the exact same time, I had moved out of my parents' house and in with my very new boyfriend, and I'd also been quite under the weather for a few months, so I definitely wasn't operating on all cylinders. And while that change mightn't have knocked a feather out of someone else,